For much of our early lives, we exist within a framework that is not truly our own. We are handed an identity before we can even question it. From childhood, we are molded by the expectations of family, society, and culture. We are told who we are, what is good, what is bad, what success looks like, and what failure means. We absorb these ideas like sponges, constructing an identity that is, at its core, a reflection of others rather than a product of deep self-exploration. In our youth, we chase this constructed identity with fervor. We strive to fit into roles that we believe will grant us happiness, security, and validation. We pursue careers that are deemed respectable, relationships that align with societal ideals, and ambitions that promise external rewards. We measure our worth based on how well we conform to these expectations. The pursuit becomes an unconscious performance, a race to achieve the image we were taught to believe in. But something happens along the way. Despite our achievements, a quiet dissatisfaction lingers. The things we once thought would bring fulfillment begin to lose their luster. The job that once seemed like the pinnacle of success now feels like a cage. The relationships we entered with certainty reveal cracks, exposing unresolved inner conflicts. The goals we set for ourselves, the ones we once pursued with relentless ambition, start to feel hollow. Yet we continue forward, believing that perhaps we just need to try harder. If we achieve more, gain more recognition, accumulate more wealth, or receive more approval, then surely the sense of emptiness will fade. We double down on our efforts, suppressing the faint whisper that suggests something is missing. Then comes a moment of reckoning, sometimes gradually, sometimes through a crisis. It may be an event that shakes our foundation, such as the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, or a personal failure. Or it may come as a slow realization, a growing discomfort that we can no longer ignore. We begin to see that the identity we have built, the one we have spent decades perfecting, is not truly ours. It is a patchwork of borrowed beliefs, inherited values, and societal pressures. It is an illusion. At first, this realization can be unsettling. If the identity we have upheld is not real, then who are we beneath it? The answer is not immediate. It cannot be found in external validation or temporary pleasures. It requires an inward journey, one that demands honesty, courage, and a willingness to question everything we once accepted as truth. The illusion of youthful identity is seductive because it offers certainty. It provides a roadmap, even if that roadmap is not designed for our true selves. To break free from it is to step into the unknown, to embrace the discomfort of self-discovery, and to be willing to let go of the security that comes from societal approval. This transition does not happen overnight. It is a process of peeling away layers, of shedding old patterns, of confronting fears that were previously masked by ambition and distraction. It is a time of great vulnerability, but also of immense potential. When the illusions fall away, what remains is the opportunity to build an identity that is rooted in authenticity rather than expectation. Before 40, much of life is spent proving something to others, to ourselves, to an invisible audience that we believe is watching and judging our every move. We live in pursuit of a self that was never fully questioned, but at 40, the weight of that illusion becomes too heavy to carry. We start to see through the false narratives, the conditioned beliefs, the expectations that no longer serve us. We recognize that the person we thought we had to be is not necessarily the person we were meant to become. This moment is not a loss, it is an awakening. It is the recognition that the real journey begins when we stop chasing an illusion and start listening to the deeper voice within. It is a time when the outer world loses its grip and the inner world calls for exploration. The mask of youthful identity begins to crack, revealing something far more real beneath it. There comes a time in life when the mask we present to the world begins to crack. We spend our early years crafting an image of ourselves that aligns with what is acceptable, admirable, and praiseworthy. We cultivate the traits that bring approval and suppress those that do not. We learn from an early age to be what others expect us to be, trimming away the parts of ourselves that do not fit the mold. But those disowned parts do not simply vanish. They retreat into the unconscious, forming what is known as the shadow. The shadow consists of everything we have rejected within ourselves, our fears, desires, instincts, anger, insecurities, and vulnerabilities. It is the part of us we deny because we were taught it was unworthy, dangerous, or shameful. Yet no matter how deeply we bury it, it does not disappear. It waits lingering beneath the surface, shaping our lives in ways we do not fully understand. We see the shadow in our reactions, in the emotions that catch us off guard, in the sudden bursts of anger, jealousy, or resentment that seem to come from nowhere. We see it in the patterns we repeat, self-sabotage, toxic relationships, addictions, and irrational fears. We see it in our judgments of others, for the things that irritate us most in others are often reflections of what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. At 40, the shadow begins to make itself known with greater force. The distractions that kept it at bay, ambition, social approval, external success, start to lose their hold. We can no longer outrun the parts of ourselves we have ignored. The emotions we repress begin to surface. The past, once locked away, demands to be reckoned with. We may experience unexpected anxiety, depression, or an existential crisis, not realizing that these are signs of an inner conflict that has been brewing for years. To embrace the shadow is to turn toward these hidden aspects of ourselves instead of running from them. It is the willingness to face the anger, the fear, the pain, and the desires that we once deemed unacceptable. It is the realization that ignoring these parts does not make them disappear. It only gives them power over us in unseen ways. This is not an easy process. The shadow is uncomfortable to face because it holds the truths we do not want to admit. It reveals the ways in which we have been dishonest with ourselves. It forces us to acknowledge our flaws, our wounds, our darkest impulses. But in doing so, it also offers something invaluable: wholeness. For too long, we believed that to be good, we had to deny the parts of ourselves that did not align with a perfect image. But true strength comes not from denial, but from integration. The shadow is not merely a place of darkness. It is also a source of immense energy, creativity, and wisdom. Within it lies the power we need to live fully. Our greatest strengths often emerge from the very wounds we sought to hide. Anger, when acknowledged and understood, becomes a force for change. Fear, when faced, transforms into courage. Pain, when accepted, deepens our capacity for compassion. The parts of ourselves we once rejected hold the key to our deepest potential. To embrace the shadow is to reclaim the fullness of who we are. This process requires honesty. It requires the ability to sit with discomfort, to question long-held beliefs, and to see ourselves without the filters of societal conditioning. It is a journey inward, not to destroy the shadow, but to integrate it. To recognize that we are not just the light we show to the world, but also the darkness we hide from it. And in that recognition, we find freedom. The shadow is not our enemy. It is the missing piece of ourselves that has been waiting to be acknowledged. When we stop fearing it, when we allow it to step into the light, we begin to understand that it was never something to be ashamed of. It was always a part of our wholeness. There comes a point in life when the self we have spent years building begins to unravel. The identity we once held on to so tightly, the roles we played, the beliefs we clung to, the ambitions that once fueled us, starts to feel distant, as if it no longer fits. What once gave us purpose now seems hollow. The things we pursued with passion no longer ignite the same fire within us. It is a strange and unsettling experience, as if we are standing at the edge of something unknown, yet unable to turn back. This is the death of the old self. For the first half of life, we are taught to build. We construct an identity, stacking each experience, achievement, and title like bricks in a house. We establish who we are in the eyes of the world, defining ourselves by what we do, what we own, and how others perceive us. The ego thrives in this period, seeking validation, security, and a sense of control. We believe that if we build ourselves well enough, if we accomplish enough, if we check off all the right boxes, we will find fulfillment. But fulfillment does not come through accumulation alone. There is a deeper call within us, though it often remains unheard in the noise of external pursuits. It is a call not to build, but to transform. And transformation always requires something to die. The old self does not die easily. It resists, clings, and fights to survive. It whispers that without it, we are nothing. That to let go is to lose everything we have worked for. It convinces us that we must keep striving, that the answer lies just beyond the next achievement, the next milestone, the next approval. But slowly we begin to see through the illusion. Perhaps it begins with exhaustion, the feeling that no matter how much we do, it is never enough. Or maybe it comes through loss, something we depended on is taken away, revealing how fragile our sense of self truly was. Sometimes it arrives as an inner emptiness, an aching realization that we have been chasing something that no longer exists. This is not a failure, it is an initiation. The old self must die so that something deeper can emerge. But death is rarely gentle. It is often painful, filled with uncertainty, grief, and resistance. We mourn the identity we once had, even as we sense that it no longer serves us. We grieve the person we thought we were, the dreams we once held, the certainty that now feels like sand slipping through our fingers. To let the old self die is an act of courage. It means surrendering control, stepping into the unknown, and allowing life to reshape us. It means releasing the need to define ourselves by titles, accomplishments, or societal expectations. It requires us to trust that beneath the layers we have shed, something more authentic is waiting to be revealed. This is not a process of destruction, but of transformation. The death of the old self is not the end of who we are. It is the shedding of what we are not. It is the unmasking of the false identity, the stripping away of the conditioned self so that we may step into something more real. Many fear this transition, clinging to the familiar even when it no longer brings joy. But resisting change only prolongs suffering. The more we hold on to what no longer serves us, the heavier it becomes. True freedom comes when we allow ourselves to let go, when we trust that what is falling away is not a loss, but a necessary release. To die to the old self is to be reborn into something greater. It is not a step backward, but an evolution. It is a return to something deeper, something truer, something that has been waiting for us all along. For much of life, we are shaped by external forces, family expectations, cultural norms, societal pressures. We are taught what is acceptable, what is admirable, what is expected of us. We learn to conform, to fit into roles that make sense to the world around us. In doing so, we construct an identity that is, in many ways, borrowed. We become who we think we are supposed to be rather than who we truly are. Yet beneath the surface of this socially constructed identity, something deeper exists. A self that is not shaped by external approval, not defined by roles, not dependent on validation. A self that is unique, whole, and deeply personal. But this self does not simply emerge on its own. It must be discovered, unearthed, and integrated. This is the process of individuation. Individuation is the journey of becoming who you were meant to be. It is the path toward wholeness, where the fragmented parts of the self, both the accepted and the rejected, are brought into harmony. It is the shedding of false identities, the confrontation of the unconscious, and the realization of the deeper self that has been hidden beneath years of conditioning. This process does not happen in youth. The first half of life is spent building an identity, pursuing goals, achieving success, establishing a sense of self in the world. This is necessary, for without an ego, there is nothing to transcend. But at a certain point, the cracks begin to show. The identity that once felt secure starts to feel limiting. The achievements that once brought fulfillment no longer satisfy. The life that was carefully constructed begins to feel like a mask. The call to individuation often comes as an inner restlessness, a sense that something is missing, even if everything appears fine on the surface. It may come as a crisis, an unexpected loss, a career shift, a breakdown of a relationship. It is in these moments that the old identity begins to crumble, forcing us to look deeper. To individuate is to turn inward, to face the aspects of the self that have been ignored or suppressed. It requires confronting the shadow, the fears, desires, and truths we have buried. It demands that we question the beliefs we have inherited, the values we have never examined, the assumptions that have dictated our choices. It is a process of stripping away, of breaking apart what is false to uncover what is real. This journey is not about rejecting the past, but integrating it. It is not about destroying the ego, but refining it, reshaping it into something that aligns with the deeper self. It is about recognizing that we are not just the persona we present to the world, but something much more vast. Individuation also demands responsibility. To become who you were meant to be is not simply a matter of self-discovery. It is a commitment to live in accordance with that discovery. It means making choices that reflect the true self, rather than choices dictated by fear or expectation. It means stepping away from what no longer serves you, even if it is difficult. It means embracing the unknown, trusting that the path ahead will reveal itself as you walk it. There is no final destination in individuation. It is not a place you arrive at, but a continuous unfolding. Each layer that is uncovered reveals another waiting beneath it. Each insight leads to deeper questions. It is a lifelong process, one that requires patience, courage, and an unwavering commitment to truth. To individuate is to come home to yourself, to see yourself fully, to accept yourself completely, and to live in a way that reflects that truth. It is the path to true freedom. Not the freedom of doing whatever you want, but the freedom of being exactly who you are. For much of life, we are taught to hold on, to cling to certainty, to grasp tightly to what we believe is ours, to secure what we think will bring happiness, stability, and meaning. We hold on to relationships even when they no longer serve us. We grip tightly to ambitions even when they drain us. We refuse to release identities that no longer fit, beliefs that no longer resonate, and past experiences that have long since passed. The mind equates letting go with loss. It resists the idea of surrender, associating it with weakness, failure, or giving up. But letting go is not passive resignation. It is an act of deep strength. It is not about abandoning responsibility, but about releasing the illusion of control over things that were never meant to be held forever. Life is in constant motion, an ever-flowing river that does not pause for our attachments. Yet we try to freeze time, to hold on to moments, people, and identities as if they are permanent. But nothing remains as it was. The very nature of existence is change. Seasons shift, people evolve, and circumstances transform. To resist this natural movement is to create suffering. The more we hold on, the more we struggle against the inevitable, exhausting ourselves in a battle we cannot win. Letting go is not easy because it forces us to confront fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of losing something familiar, the fear of being left with nothing. We cling to the past because it is known, even if it brings pain. We hesitate to release our burdens because, strangely, they have become a part of us. The suffering we have carried for years has shaped our identity, and without it, we are unsure of who we will be. But in truth, the act of letting go is not about losing. It is about making space. When we release what no longer serves us, we open ourselves to new possibilities. When we let go of old wounds, we create space for healing. When we stop chasing things not meant for us, we allow the right things to find us. Letting go of the past does not mean erasing it. It means no longer allowing it to define you. It means accepting that what happened cannot be changed, but how you carry it forward is within your power. Regret, resentment, and guilt are chains that bind us to a past that no longer exists. But the moment we release them, we step into the present, unburdened and free to move forward. Letting go of control does not mean becoming indifferent. It means recognizing the limits of your influence. It means understanding that you cannot force people to stay, that you cannot make everything unfold according to your desires, that clinging to certainty only blinds you to the beauty of the unknown. True peace comes not from controlling every outcome, but from trusting yourself to navigate whatever comes. Letting go of who you once were is one of the greatest challenges. The person you were in the past, the roles you played, the identity you built, the dreams you once had may no longer align with who you are becoming. And yet we resist this change, fearing that without the familiar self we will be lost. But true growth requires shedding old skins. It requires surrendering the outdated versions of ourselves so that we may step into something greater. There is power in release. There is strength in surrender. There is transformation in loosening the grip on what we have outgrown. To let go is to trust, not in external circumstances, but in ourselves. It is to recognize that we are not defined by what we hold on to, but by our willingness to embrace the unknown. Suffering is an inescapable part of life. No matter how carefully we plan, how much we try to avoid pain, or how fiercely we cling to comfort, suffering finds its way to us. It arrives in different forms: loss, failure, illness, heartbreak, loneliness. It comes unexpectedly, shattering the illusions we built, disrupting the stability we believed in. And when it does, it forces us to confront the deepest questions. Why must we suffer? What is the purpose of pain? Is there meaning in struggle, or is it merely something to endure? In the face of suffering, the mind instinctively resists. It seeks explanations, demands justice, tries to escape. It asks, why me? It fights against reality, hoping that through enough effort or denial, the suffering will disappear. But suffering is not something that can be reasoned away or avoided indefinitely. The more we resist it, the greater its hold on us. Yet there is another way to approach suffering, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Pain, as unwelcome as it may be, has a way of revealing truths that comfort never could. It strips away illusions, exposing the reality we often ignore. It humbles us, reminding us of our fragility, our limitations, our dependence on forces beyond our control. It forces us to reevaluate what truly matters, to see beyond the superficial, to seek something deeper. Suffering often marks a turning point in life. It is in the moments of greatest despair that transformation begins. When everything falls apart, we are left with a choice: to sink into bitterness or to search for meaning within the struggle. It is in these moments that we begin to understand that suffering itself is not the end. It is a passage, an initiation into a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world. Finding meaning in suffering does not mean glorifying pain, does not mean pretending to enjoy hardship or denying the weight of grief. It means recognizing that within suffering lies an opportunity for growth, for wisdom, for a deeper connection to life. It means asking, what is this pain trying to teach me? What can I learn from this? How can I use this suffering to become more than I was before? Some of the most profound transformations arise from suffering. It is through struggle that we develop resilience, through loss that we learn the depth of love, through failure that we discover humility, through despair that we seek faith. The most authentic parts of who we are often revealed not in moments of ease, but in times of great challenge. Suffering also strips away the false self, the identity we carefully construct, the one built on success, external validation, and control, begins to crumble under the weight of suffering. And in that collapse, something real is uncovered. When we are no longer defined by what we have, what we achieve, or how the world perceives us, we are left with the essence of who we truly are. This is why suffering, though painful, is also sacred. It is the fire through which the old self is burned away, leaving only what is true. It is the force that pushes us toward self-discovery, toward deeper wisdom, toward a more profound connection with existence itself. But meaning in suffering is not something that is found instantly. It is something that must be created, cultivated over time. It is a process of reflection, of surrender, of allowing pain to shape us rather than destroy us. And in that process, suffering becomes not just something to endure, but something that transforms. There comes a moment in life when the mask begins to slip. The carefully constructed persona, the one built to please others, to fit into society's expectations, to avoid discomfort, starts to feel heavy, suffocating. Something within begins to stir, an undeniable restlessness, a quiet voice whispering that the life being lived is not fully one's own. This is the call to authentic living. And though it often begins as a whisper, it grows louder the longer it is ignored. Authenticity is not simply a matter of self-expression or individuality. It is the alignment of one's outer life with the deeper, truer self that exists beyond conditioning. It is the shedding of pretense, the release of socially imposed masks, the willingness to stand fully in one's truth without fear of rejection or failure. To live authentically is to live in accordance with who one truly is rather than who one has been told to be. Yet for most, the journey to authenticity is not straightforward. From childhood, people are taught what is acceptable and what is not, which emotions are permissible and which must be suppressed, what ambitions are noble and which are foolish. To belong, to be loved, to be safe, these are powerful motivators, and so many mold themselves into shapes that others approve of. Over time, the authentic self is buried beneath layers of adaptation. It becomes easier to play the role that is expected than to question whether that role is true. But the cost of inauthenticity is high. Living in opposition to the true self creates a deep, lingering unease. It manifests as dissatisfaction, as exhaustion, as an inexplicable sense of emptiness. It may appear as success on the surface, achievements, social approval, external validation, but internally there is a disconnect, a feeling of having betrayed something essential. The more one suppresses the authentic self, the more life begins to feel like an act, a performance, rather than a genuine experience. The call to authentic living often comes through crisis, a sudden upheaval, a loss, a failure, a moment of disillusionment, shakes the foundations of the false self, forcing a confrontation with reality. The things once pursued with conviction now seem hollow. The roles once played no longer fit. The truth that has been ignored for years demands to be acknowledged, and in that moment a choice arises: to continue the act, clinging to what is familiar, or to step into the unknown in pursuit of something real. But authenticity requires courage. It demands the willingness to disappoint others, to break away from old expectations, to risk rejection. It means no longer living for external approval, no longer shaping oneself to fit into spaces that were never meant to be inhabited. It requires an honest confrontation with one's desires, fears, and contradictions. It means embracing the parts of the self that have been hidden, the unconventional thoughts, the unspoken dreams, the truths that feel too raw to expose. Authentic living is not about perfection. It does not mean having all the answers, nor does it mean a life free of struggle. It is instead a commitment to truth, one's own truth, not the one dictated by society or imposed by others. It means allowing growth, allowing evolution, allowing change without shame. It is the recognition that to be truly alive, one must be willing to be truly seen. This journey is not without its costs. Authenticity often demands solitude. as not everyone will understand or accept the changes that come with it. It may require walking away from relationships that no longer align, careers that do not fulfill, beliefs that no longer resonate. It requires the release of illusions, the dismantling of old narratives, the willingness to rebuild from the ground up. But the reward of authentic living is profound. It is the freedom of being at peace with oneself, the joy of no longer pretending, the deep fulfillment of knowing that one's life is being lived, not performed. It is a return to something primal, something essential, the self that existed before the world told it who to be.